bait. Got him that time. Did you see how he missed it? And then he freaking smoked it? Yes. Dude, just sticks him. Oh, spooner.
So my question for you, are you the big spoon or the little spoon? So what is going on, fishing bros and broettes? I got a little, I guess it'd be a product review for you. Kind of a cool deal. This is the new Big Larry. And right off the bat, something super cool about it, it's been kind of a trend lately, is these bait companies are doing collaboration baits. I think Missile Baits and Spunk Shad did something like this. And this guy right here is actually a collaboration between Nichols Lures and Bass Mafia and, you know, Zaldangerous, Chris Zaldane. And there's some cool features about it that aren't your standard spoon. I'm hard to please when it comes to this kind of stuff. Things need to be different. It can't just be a hunk of metal that does the exact same thing. And there's a lot of big spoons out there that are like that. But what we're going to do in this video is I'm going to tell you about a few features that might actually key you into using this instead of some of the other Magnum spoons that you're using. But it's definitely a situational thing. So hit that like and subscribe button. It's not your ordinary spoon, and please don't tell me if you're the big spoon or little spoon. So the Ben Parker, if you guys have fished it, gigantic spoon, you know, like literally the OG Magnum spoon. And one of the big tricks is when you're fishing a Ben Parker, you pop it up and it basically goes down like a ton of bricks. That's not a bad thing. I like it as a reaction bait. It's a giant profile and you're fishing it very aggressively, and I like that aggressive fall because it triggers fish. I've caught like 8-inch bass on it, and I've caught like 8-pound bass. So it really has the ability to trigger with that straight down, super fast fall. What's really different with this Big Larry is the thump and the fall. And so what I think actually causes that, it has a slightly different mold or a slightly different bend. You can see it's sort of an est out. It sort of comes in and goes out, that bend or that cup in the spoon. And what it causes it to do is, in comparison to that Ben Parker, you'll throw a Ben Parker out, pop it up, it goes straight back down, like it's up and down. This guy actually stalls and has a much more pronounced sort of rolling and thumping action as it falls. I would compare it a lot more to sort of like the Lake Fork flutter spoon, where you're actually following that bait down after you rip it up and pop it up, and you're kind of following it down, waiting for the bite until you get to the bottom. Whereas the standard Magnum spoons, like I said, they're up, it's like a brick, it's straight back down. Not a bad thing, but definitely different. The other thing that this has that I think is kind of interesting, and I didn't notice it until I put my Active Target 2 on it and started throwing it, is the way it actually falls when you cast and rip it. Not only does it give you that thump report that's sort of stalled, which I like because it sort of hovers the bait, and we've been talking a lot about suspended fish lately and how all these bass are sort of up in the water column. It keeps it in the strike zone more. But what's even more interesting is, according to my Active Target and what I'm seeing underwater, it actually falls backwards. So whereas a standard big Magnum spoon is going to go up and straight down to the bottom, as it comes back towards the boat, as it comes back to you, this guy actually falls slightly backwards. So for every, say, 5 feet you bring it forward, it's going to fall back 2 feet of that 5, keeping it in the strike zone, extending your cast, and sort of just kind of slowing things down and allowing you to make a more, sometimes actually to screw up your cast, because sometimes I'll cast this thing short. These big Magnum spoons are not easy to cast, so if I cast it short, it's actually going to fall back a few feet and put me on target. So that back fall, it keeps it in the fish, as well as extending the amount of time that your cast is taking, your retrieve is taking, and keeping it sort of in that group of fish that might be following it. Because as you've probably seen, if you're running forward-facing sonar, there's a lot more following fish than biting fish. Fish will kind of like track a bait, but not commit to it and not close the deal. However, oftentimes they're closing the deal a lot nearer to the boat than we would expect, because we're keeping the bait down there a lot longer, because we're seeing these fish, how they sort of stay behind a bait, how they get curious with the bait. But oftentimes in the past, we were pulling the bait out too quick. And what's interesting with this is this will actually fall back to a group of fish that's underwater, like following or tracking your bait. So when you're popping it up, instead of it moving all that way forward and sort of running away from the fish, you'll pop it up, draw those fish, get them activated, get them them curious, get them interested, and then it's going to fall back to them when they're actually trailing it, which is a completely different presentation than the majority of spoons out there. The other thing that makes it a little different is the colors, and I'm not a big color guy. I guess it's more of a pattern thing. So for instance, you know, I showed you this guy. It's kind of like a pounded glass. It has those ridges. And then the other guy that I got right here, getting super hot, also just kind of like a chrome with the ridges. But see how it's got all the breakup on it? I like that in a spoon because I just don't want a giant hunk of chrome. I want it to reflect in a bunch of different directions and sort of break up that reflection and that flash, because the reality is, like, when you look at a fish, it's got a bunch of scales, right? That breakup when the sun hits it is not just one big mirror reflection of the sun. It's a bunch of different broken up sort of beams of light that come off of it. So the more that spoon gives that sort of that natural flash, I think the more successful it is, especially with those fish that are a little bit finicky. Retrieve wise, it's pretty standard, dude. You know, I use one of 3 retrieves 90% of the time with these big spoons like this. One is your classic ripping retrieve. It's a single pop. You know, you're literally just popping it, jutting it up in the water column. What's slightly different with this, like I talked about, there's a lot more thump to this spoon, so I'm actually tracking it down a lot more. So I'm a lot more engaged on that down fall than I normally am with a Magnum spoon. The other retrieve, and especially with the suspended fish that we've been seeing, I've been having to get baits higher in the water column than what I've normally done in the past. So basically what you do is a single pop, and after that you wait like a quarter of a second, and then with that little bit of extra rod tip you have left, and that's why I like that slightly longer, that 7-11 rod, I'll actually give it a second pop. So it'll be pop pop, you know, pop pop, and what it does is it jumps it up like, I don't know, maybe like another 2 or 3 foot. And in situations where you're in 30 feet of water, 20 feet of water, it'll get it up, you know, like 10, 12 in the water column. And that, it also causes the spoon, much like when you're fishing a trap, to kind of stall. The other one that's a little bit sneaky, and what's kind of cool with this guy, since it does have more of that thumping action, is the retrieve. It's a little trickier to play with. Basically what you do is you toss it out. I'd recommend your initial kind of pop is a standard single pop. It sort of gets the spoon working, it gets it moving, and then what you do is you follow it back down using that thump, following the thump with your rod tip, and then you're gonna give like 3 or 4 fast retrieves, wait like a half second, 3 or 4 fast retrieves, then maybe follow it down a little bit more. It's basically a swimming or a reeling action. What it does is, instead of the spoon sort of jumping in a 45-degree manner, it really points the spoon like this, and it focuses more on the wobble of the spoon versus that jumping up and the flutter. Gives it kind of a roll, like maybe like a swim bait, like a jointed swim bait. Just gives it kind of this shimmy. And what you can do too is, I don't always get bites on that, but oftentimes that's a way to kind of draw fish up and trigger them from the bottom and get them moving around. So I'll actually throw that out, and if I'm trying to cover a more extensive, say, hard spot or shell bar on the bottom, I'll do that to sort of get them grouping up, get them moving around, and then I'll fire back and do either that single pop retrieve or that double pop retrieve. So what I'd recommend you do, holler at your girl, be like, hey, I got a new way to spoon. I want to introduce you to Big Larry. And she'll be like, huh, tell me about Big Larry. And then you're like, whoa, 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 hold up. That's what I do to Swimsuit Girl, dude. And then she keeps me on my toes. She'd be like, tell me more about this Big Larry. And be like, whoa, 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 hold up. But if you guys dig spooning, I dig it. You catch some big ones, and you'll be amazed too with a mag spoon how many small fish actually gravitate towards it. And this really gives you the ability to manage and fish that spoon more methodically. It's not the brick like the Ben Parker, which has its place. It has more of a flutter, more of a thump, and especially for all the suspended fish that just seem to be showing up no matter where you fish in the country, it's yet another tool to stay in the strike zone a little bit longer and show them something different. They haven't seen a big spoon that backfalls like this thing, which I think is pretty cool. I'll put a link to it. You guys can go check it out, see if it applies to your fishery. Hit that like and subscribe button for me if you get a chance, though. Grassroots fishing, it relies on you guys, and I appreciate all the support. I'm going to go throw Big Larry and do a little spooning. Later, boys.